The Battle of Hong Kong began on the 8th of December 1941. It ended just 17 days later, on the 25th of December. It was shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning when the Japanese began to attack. They did not attack by sea, but in fact came in from the new territories. The black arrows on this map show the routes that the Japanese took when they advanced into Hong Kong. They took control of the majority of the center, as well as the southern areas such as Stanley. Although the initial invasion was by land, the Hong Kong troops were prepared to defend against any form of attack. They used weapons such as this disappearing cannon to defend against attacks from the sea. It takes advantage of the recoil produced after each shot and bounces back into its original position out of enemy view, which enables soldiers to reload them as well. To defend against attacks from the air, the troops used guns such as this one. It could be aimed at any target in the sky and fired with reasonable accuracy up to a few hundred meters. Most of these weapons are stationed in the Coastal Defence Fort on the far east of Hong Kong Island, what has now been turned into the Museum of Coastal Defence. The Coastal Defence Fort managed to resist Japanese attacks for several days, until they were finally overwhelmed on the 19th of December. This is a view from the fort of the Lei Yuen Mun Channel. On the other side of the channel is Devil's Peak, where the Japanese forces invaded from. So after just 17 days, the battle was over. The Japanese had taken control of the reservoirs, as well as the main water supply, and the British troops were facing the threat of dying from thirst. So at 3:30 on Christmas Day 1941, the British had no option but to fly the white flag of surrender, and later signed the document of surrender at the Peninsula Hotel in Kowloon. So why did all of this happen, and what were the consequences?
There were many causes and reasons as to why Japan invaded Hong Kong, mainly due to its perfect positioning in the trading world. It was also a reasonably wealthy place at the time. Hong Kong had many ports and was well linked with the rest of the world in trade, as many ships passed through Hong Kong. It was a good place to have control over. Hong Kong was also a British colony and a part of China, both enemies of Japan, and due to the attacks in Britain and China, there were limited defences guarding Hong Kong. Hong Kong was also just another island in the way for Japan. It seemed an easy place to take over. Despite the Canadian and British reinforcements, the imperialistic Japanese quickly took over Hong Kong, which resulted in a 3-year occupation of our city.
After the battle for Hong Kong, Isugai Rensugi governed Hong Kong and Usher for approximately 3 years. Japanese soldiers terrorized the local population by raping and also murdering hundreds. Although Hong Kong surrendered, many of the local villagers waged a small guerrilla war near the new territories. As a result, villages were razed as a punishment for the resistance. Hours before Hong Kong surrendered to Japan, a group of drunken soldiers entered the St. Stephen's College, which was being used as a hospital, and killed many wounded soldiers who were unable to hide. This was known as the St. Stephen's College Incident.